Book Blitz! Welcome back to Twilight. Chapter 14, Mind Over Matter. After their date in the forest, Edward and Bella are heading back home, and we find out a couple of things about Edward. We find out that he was actually born in Chicago in 1901. So I'm trying to remember when exactly this story is set. I think it's set in like 2008. Right, something like that. So
because he has like a CD player.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm just trying to remember. I don't remember if there's like an actual year that's assigned to it, or if it's just kind of vaguely modern 2000s. Yeah, like early 2000s. You know, like
I don't know.
I don't
it's like
remember.
Harry Potter. It happens in the year it was published.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Anyway, so he's well over 100 years old is the point. And basically we're finding out more about his family. We're finding out about, why is Emmett and Rosalie together? Why, where's Jasper coming from? Where did Alice come from? Why are they together? And it's all pretty well just kind of because the plot said so. Like that's basically how it is. Like, there are better explanations in there, but really it doesn't really matter why they're all together. And the only detail that matters at all, at least in the original version, is that the way that Alice came into the
vampire world.
Yeah, the vampire world was very shrouded in mystery. No one really knows how that happened, why that happened. She doesn't remember it herself, and that's about it, really. There's just no explanation. And that's a mystery, I guess. That's like a subplot I'm not entirely sure why it's there, but it is. And we'll get to that when it gets resolved toward the end of the book. But anyway, so, most, and we learn more about, what are vampires like in general. And, for the most part, they kind of roam the land. They mostly just they don't really stay in one place. The Cullens are a rare exception because they don't hunt humans. And so they kind of stick in one place and they can kind of blend in. And that's their whole goal, is just to have a normal life as much as possible. But that's very unusual among vampire culture, I guess. And so then we get back to Bella's house, and this is where all the stereotypes about Twilight being just creepy and just having really weird, creepy stuff.
No, yeah.
Happens.
Like I was thinking about that myself. Like
this chapter is where some of those stereotypes come from, for sure. Like
where Edward or Edith is like actually sort of a stalker. Like I actually was thinking about this as I was reading this book, is that like I actually would not recommend anyone to ever date someone like Edith or Edward in real life. Aside from the fact that they're actually a vampire, like assuming this person was, because you're not going to meet a vampire, but you might meet somebody with the same kind of personal characteristics. And Edith is like Edith and Edward, they're the same character. They're just different, who one has a vagina, one doesn't. And like they're bossy. They get angry all of a sudden for no reason. They kind of like dismiss Beau a lot to a certain degree, and then try to make up with it by like being physically affectionate. And they literally like stalk Beau all the time. Like they almost always know what Beau's doing. Cannot spend more than like 10 minutes away from Beau or Belle. And in real life, that's a socio or psychopath. Probably a psychopath. Like, I'm going to manipulate you to my own ends to satisfy my own emotional. But, like, you can see this, though, right? Like, it's so easy to see, like, in the original Twilight, he's this pretty boy, pouty, distant, angst, like, stalks the girl. Like, because the whole point, right? Like, he's the, like, perfect human, but like perfect as like a teenage girl would see it. Like he's obsessed with her. He thinks she's the best thing ever. You know what I mean? Like, just ugh.
Well, it is not a healthy relationship. And it's kind of funny because that is actually something that's pointed out repeatedly again and again and again throughout the entire series. Not just through Edward's dialogue here throughout this book, but even in stuff that just happens in later books. Like, it's clear that as far as this being a healthy relationship, that's just not the case. And it's like I said, what's interesting to me about that is that Edward himself is the one saying this. Like, we do have these moments when, and they are the stereotypical, we shouldn't be around each other. We shouldn't be friends. We can't be together. You should be scared of me. But later on, when shit does hit the fan, then there is this whole thing of, this is why I never wanted this to happen. This is why I knew this was a bad situation. Even though we wanted it, it wasn't right. And it causes all sorts of horrible problems that never would have been a thing. And you see that later on. But even outside of the so-called collateral damage, right? Even if we just isolate everything down to just Edward and Bella, just their relationship, or Bo and Edith, it's not.
Please respect my version of the story. Thank you.
I'm so sorry.
It's not all about the male vampires.
Dismantle the vampirarchy.
The vamp patriarchy.
I liked my version more. Just taking it on its own, okay? We have, and granted, I'm not okay. Edward has done some good things for Bella. Edward has saved Bella's life.
As does anyone who has an unhealthy relationship with anyone. Like, the person's never all bad. You know what I mean?
No. But in general, and just generally speaking, right? My point is, Edward has done good things for Bella. He saved her life, like, twice. He is looking out for her well-being physically.
I'll tell you what, I look out for my girls' well-being physically. You know what I mean?
And that's honestly about it. I mean, when you let's look at what Edward has actually done that is pro Bella, right? And what's ironic here is that the story itself points this out again and again through Edward's voice, right? He saw that someone was about to be hit by a car. He has the ability to stop the car, and with great power comes great responsibility. He stops the car, and he saves this person's life. I'm separating the romantic element out of this for a minute, okay? He saved her life. He also stalks this same person through violating the privacy of the mind of one of her friends, follows them to another city, and then hunts this girl down and just happens to arrive where she is at the same time that she's about to have a gang attacker. And he saves her from the gang. Then he puts her in his car and drives at like over 100 miles an hour constantly, despite her protestations saying, I don't want you driving that fast. You gotta slow down. I mean, and then he's constantly threatening her and trying to make her afraid of the possibility that he will unexpectedly turn violent and could straight up murder her. Now, let me ask you, does this sound... Let's take the vampire part out of this. Does this sound like a healthy relationship, or does this sound like an unpredictable, violent drunkard? That's what this is. This guy.
We're not a drunkard, but like
specifically you never
a violently
know.
Unpredictable, like obsessive,
based on an addiction,
near psychopathic,
based on an addiction to a liquid substance. It's basically a violent sociopath that has saved this girl's life because of the fact that he's obsessed with her. And that's the reason. And so when you really break it down, this is not a healthy relationship. This isn't even really a relationship to begin with. And granted, yeah, they are getting to know each other slowly over time. And I do understand totally that, yes, this is a fantasy story about vampires. And yes, he's trying to conquer his base instinct as a monster, as a vampire, whatever. But really, this is an entire story of I can change him.
It's also kind of excusing that behavior.
No, it is. Like, it's exactly what it is. It's like, okay, sure, he may be saying constantly that there's a threat of him possibly lunging across the room and tearing your jugular out. But he's such a good guy. And it's like the whole like argument about like rape. You know what I mean? Where it's like, but no, he's a great guy. Like, but he's just a guy. It's like. You mean the boys will be boys argument?
Yeah, exactly. Like the whole which I think not to like side with SJWs too much, but I think there's definitely some validity there on that one. Like it's like, oh, but he's a great person. Just he's prone to doing awful things, but no. But other than this really horrible character flaw, he's great. He's great.
But that's the thing, right? It excuses everything gets filtered out. All those issues get explained away by the excuse, well, he's a vampire. And that's just how vampires are. Okay, well, keep in mind that let's really look at, okay, those are the things that Edward has done toward Bella. But Bella's response to those things is in itself unhealthy. She becomes obsessive over this person. And granted, that could be because of her own insecurities when at first she can't figure out what he thinks about her. And everybody, if you can't tell what somebody thinks about you and you have insecurities, you're probably going to wonder quite a lot, why that person doesn't like you. And that could develop into an obsession. That doesn't make it healthy. Yeah. And that's basically what Bella's quote unquote relationship with Edward is for the first chunk of the book. It is this obsession. It's an obsession with finding out, why doesn't this guy like me? What's wrong with me? And so basically what you have here is someone who is deeply insecure, obsessing over the opinion of one particular person toward them, to the point where she's rearranging her life for that person and obsessing over this person's opinion. So we have the perfect setup for a stereotypical abusive relationship. We have a violently unpredictable guy. And again, this is the stereotype. And in your version, it's the girl. So, whatever.
Yeah.
Violently unpredictable partner with mood swings, who is threatening, who would prefer, and I know that it's a fantasy story about vampires, but who would prefer that their partner lives in fear of them than to be comfortable around them. Outright would prefer that. And then you have the other person who is so obsessed with the first person's approval of them that they go through pretty much anything, no matter what, to get that approval. I mean, this is an abusive relationship. Like, am I just pulling this out of my ass? Like, am I just not seeing this right? Like,
no. I definitely think there's elements of abusiveness in the relationship. but you gotta remember, it's not just live in fear of them and still be around, like, which is very different. Like, he or she wants her or him to be afraid of them so that they're not around, so that they're safe. Like, which is still kind of twisted, but is less twisted than, like, they want you around and then they want you to be afraid of them. Like, I think very much later, although it's still in an obsessive sort of way, Edith very much tries to make Bo feel safe. Like, is not trying to, like, have there be fear.
Yeah.
Like, that element goes away once she really fully accepts Bo's existence in her life. And so, like, it's not, like, if that was there still and it was like, you know, but it was, I'm actually trying to keep you here. Like, I'm keeping you in fear so you're afraid to run away.
Yeah.
Which is very much more sinister. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And again, I understand, as I've said, I understand this is a fantasy story about vampires. Totally 1000% get that. And that, to a degree, in this fictional universe does explain away a lot of these issues, right? But the reason I'm bringing this up is because when you look at the actual relationship being developed before our eyes, if you strip away, and it is a huge, important touchstone aspect of the whole thing, the fact that he's a vampire. But if you strip that away and you treat this like a human relationship, it's not healthy.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
you know, and just having having one of the main characters acknowledge that constantly doesn't make it any more healthy. Like, anyway, so it's just, I just wanted to mention that just because that is something that I have, those are charges I've heard levied against this series before. And I had never really thought about it in that way until I was kind of putting the pieces together in my own mind from having just done a fresh reading of it, you know? And I do want to just point that out. This is not something I plan on hammering home at any other time, but there are things that happen in the later books that demonstrate how unhealthy this relationship truly is. And the reason that it's shown as a good outcome when Bella and Edward are together is just because that it is. Like, it's like, just because, well, they want each other. Well, they love each other enough. Well, this and that. But really, it's actually not a good thing. Edward's actually right. Edward's actually right through most of this whole thing. And in almost every book, there's another moral dilemma that arises where Edward is probably right. But because Bella wants things to go a different way, the story equates Bella's want of something with a morally superior outcome, even if it causes problems along the way, even if, you know, there's collateral damage. At the end of the day, well, Bella got what she really wanted, and that's a happy ending. Am I making sense? And granted, I know you haven't, like, read or watched any of the later stuff, so you don't know what I'm referencing yet. Which is actually kind of cool too, because with the Inheritance series, we both know what's coming, but
we both know, yes.
But anyway, so we've spent this whole time talking about just the very beginning of the chapter. So basically, this is the chapter that all these stereotypes come from, where literally you have Edward/Edith admitting to having stalked our protagonist in their sleep, in their room, watching over them while they sleep, listening to them sleep talk.
But mind you, let's do consider, like, I like how the book admits that that's weird. Like,
no, it does. It is. Yeah.
It's not like Aragon, where that straight up happens, like, a girl's unconscious and Aragon's copping a feel. You know what I mean? And it's like not a big deal. Um, Whereas like in this
I don't
book,
think that happens.
no, he does, dude. He does. I mean, technically,
I mean,
he's providing care and doctoral support, but then he's also like totally into her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, okay, this is certainly not a like a really good thing going on here. But like it's just so in this one, however, Edward, like in my Edith, she's a vampire. She never sleeps. Okay, like so you're gonna get bored. And nighttime's the one time you can like freely travel around at full speed and not glitter. Which I hate the glittering thing, but I'm gonna let it slide.
I really want to hear about your glittering thing.
Well, I mean, there's not much to say other than they're not. That really kind of makes them not vampires. Makes them more like some sort of evil spirit or like more like an angel almost, but like a fallen angel. Like
I think that's actually what's being gone for, if we're really honest.
yeah, like they're not really vampires. Like they're fallen angels. Because they glitter, they're perfect, they're super strong, whatever. The only thing that makes them vampires is the biting, and that's about it. But in every other aspect, they're like more like a demon than they are like a vampire. Or they look angelic, but they're not. Like they look good, but they're actually not good. But not in the sense of moral goodness exactly, because this book kind of doesn't means it says that they're good regardless, but more in the sense of like the actual tendency to hurt humans, or that the fact that they need to eat humanity to survive. But Edith admits it and is actually kind of loath to admit that she's actually been doing this because she knows that it's strange. But when you think about the context, okay, you literally can't sleep. You're obsessed with this person who's obsessed with you. And you have finally the ability to kind of like run around town without being seen. Like I get that. Like I don't think it's still creepy as fuck, but in the very, very specific context of being a vampire. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I can, like, it's not as, like, god-awful strange versus, like, if it's a human being.
Well, and it's not... None of this is to say that as a story, it's a bad thing or whatever. My main point with all that is just people have these stereotypes about this whole thing, and they're there. They're
definitely there.
And this is where it comes from, right here.
Yeah, it's not that it's not true. Like, Edward or Edith is obsessive, clingy, mood swingy, and like we said, it's really only the vampirism that makes that okay. Which it's like I don't know how to do. It's like I honestly don't know what to do with that in the context of a story, because it's like you can kind of explain it all away as vampirism, and I don't know whether or not that's okay or not. Like, but it's certainly it's still nonetheless is sort of like that's why it's going on. Like it's vampirism. Like it's I don't know. Anyway, but it also
he also.
Well, this chapter, more getting on the topic of this chapter, like I liked it and I didn't like it. Like I liked it that Edith and Bo are spending time together, which like previously the whole point, like the whole like tension in the beginning of the book is that like they like each other but they're not around each other. And so I'm kind of, like, as anyone who's, like, reading a romance novel, like, you want the romance characters to kind of hang out. But what I don't like about this chapter is that it's not, like, it's meant to be romance, and it sort of is, but it's, like, for the reader, it's just exposition. Like, for Bo, he's getting a boner with like, a female vampire on him, but, like, for us as, like, the reader, what we're getting is vampirism 1.101. You know what I mean? Like, like, like he's having a good time, but we're just listening to Edith just go on and on and on about like, this is what vampires do. This is how we do. This is this is that, and this is you can't kill us, and this is blah blah blah. Like, and then vampirism 101. Like, it's just like God, or vampirism 102. Like, it just okay. I get it. Like, anyway, so that's what I don't like. And for me, I was kind of by the end of this chapter, I was kind of like done. But the next chapter made up for it, if I remember right. The next chapter is when they meet the family.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
Basically, the whole entire like, because this story basically has two climaxes, like two different actual like story arcs. Like, the first half of the book is the story arc of, okay, Edith Cullen, who is she? Why am I into her? Is she into me? Does she hate me? Does she like me? And then that gets resolved because, lo and behold, the hot vampire girl in your chem class or biology class does dig you. And so that's resolved. Problem solved. And then the next half of the book, or actually probably I think more like a last third, the dilemma there is introduced, right? Like, it's not introduced, I don't think, in that chapter, but one, it's just we're getting close to it, and like the family's interesting, the family members are interesting. I found them interesting, and that's when you get introduced to them is the next chapter, and then the chapter following that is when everything gets real, and like that's what I was much more invested in the last third of the book than I was in the first 2/3. Because crap's happening, things are getting serious, like the darker side of vampirism is being shown. Because so far all we've had is like Edith being like, things can get dangerous, vampires are evil, vampires are bad, stay away from me. And then like, like, but okay, you glitter in the sunlight like you're some beautiful angel, you literally save people's lives, like, you want to make out with me, like I have, like, from Beau's perspective, there's no reason to actually be like concerned at all. And so, like, finally, in the next couple chapters, we get to see what vampirism really is, like how the Cullens aren't normal. Anyway, but
so before that happens, though, there's two more things I want to talk about in this chapter. And this is honestly probably going to be the longest chapter in the whole book as far as our podcast is concerned. But the first thing is that we finally get an explanation in this chapter about the superpowers that vampires have, that certain vampires have, where Edward can read minds and his sister Alice can see the future. And the explanation for why this is, and granted, keep in mind, I haven't read these books in a long time, so I don't know if there's a better explanation that comes later on or not. But the explanation for now is, well, you see, if there was a human trait that was really strong in a person when they became a vampire, then, well, that trait could become their superpower when they're a vampire. So Edward must have been like a really perceptive person about what other people might have been thinking, and then he literally does read people's minds as a vampire. Maybe Alice was, kind of really perceptive, like she could, really kind of, she would have been really good at the stock market,
God.
Like,
actually, what's funny is that that's actually a thing.
No,
like,
and
that's actually like how they make their money. Like, it's
like, and that's the thing. So friggin'
like
now
it's
Alice,
like,
as a vampire, can not read minds, but she can see the future. And then we have Jasper, who has the ability to affect the emotions in everyone in a room around him. Which we'll get to pretty soon in the next chapter. But then we kind of have we kind of have these three odd men out. We've got
Wait. Yeah, what's Royal's power? I forgot what. Well, sorry, I don't know what he would be for you.
probably Rosalie.
Rosalie. So in my version, he's Royal, and then he's dating Eleanor.
Right.
And Eleanor's super strong. But like in my version, Royal's not really there. Like I think in the original Twilight, he's kind of meant to be a bigger deal, and I think with how it ends, like the kind of conflict with Rosalie or whoever's the problem, ends up not being a big deal or ends up being resolved. Whereas in my version, because of the way it ends differently, it kind of feels like totally unnecessary to the story.
Well, yeah, and so because Rosalie, and you find this out later, but Rosalie is not happy about the whole Bella thing. She resents Bella. But you don't find out why that is for I think like 2 books. I think
because like in my version, you get a big like super explanation. Like you do get an explanation at the end, but where it's like basically all the stuff they would have told you over the course of 3 books they tell you in like the last chapter.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I mean,
like
you'll have to tell me about that when we get there. But what I wanted to talk about with the superpowers is, okay, we've got Edward, reads minds. Alice, sees the future. Jasper,
Jessamy. Sorry.
Yeah, you're shouting out there. Jasper can affect emotions in a room.
Readers are gonna be so confused. They're like,
no.
Yeah, Ellen. I mean Jasper. I mean Jessamy. I mean Archie. Like I want to say Archie. You're gonna say what's her name? Alice.
Alice. Yeah.
Like,
Archie.
Yep.
Freaking Archie. Yep. That's what they named.
Yeah.
What?
Archie.
They named it Archie?
Yeah. But hey, you gotta remember, this is a guy from like what the 1930s.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're right. You're right.
Like, you gotta remember, everyone's got like 1930s names. Like,
okay,
I'm surprised there's not like
when you mentioned that, I mean, I was gonna comment on what was it, Jessamine, but then I heard Archie, Jessamine. And I was like, what? I don't know, but you're right. That totally makes sense. I think like the names in the original version are also on the whole a little more quote unquote normal and modern, sort of. But anyway,
yeah. But Edward's not that strange.
Right.
Royal is very strange. Anyway.
But anyway, so then you've got Emmett, who is like ridiculously strong because he was really strong as a human. Okay, but then you've got Carlisle, Esme, and Rosalie. Carlisle was just really compassionate in life, so I guess he's got superpower compassion now. Esme loved people, so I guess she's got love superpowers, whatever that means.
I think no.
And then Rosalie,
yeah, I guess Rosalie
is like was really tenacious in life, and now that's like a superpower apparently. Like, God. I mean, that's the thing. Yeah. When not everybody has these superpowers that are based on their human traits, and that's what this is. As far as I know, as far as the context of this book is concerned, this is the explanation for what those powers actually are. So, like, what?
God forbid you were just like a normal person. It's like, Frank's really shitting good at like Overwatch now. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, dude, Frank really knew how to do his taxes beforehand, but now, he's a tax god.
Oh my god! Really, and I guess the reason that's there. Oh my gosh! You know what? I just realized the reason that's described the way it is. It's a lazy way out. It's a really easy cop-out to go, well, I guess Edward was just really perceptive in real life, you know?
Yeah. Well, also, you gotta remember, though, like, in this book's defense, when was the last time anything that was superpower, like, focused in any story ever really gave legitimate explanation for those superpowers?
Well, no, it's not that. It's the inconsistency that bugs me. Like, it's the inconsistency. If it's like, okay, well, if everybody, it's either one way or it's the other. You can't have both. Either either everybody is,
Gets a superpower.
as it's being implied, getting a superpower, and some of them are just impossible to translate, I guess. Like, what does superpower compassion look like? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, compassion
Yeah,
already
yeah.
is kind of a
Well,
superpower
so
in real life,
so
you know?
so
Like,
in my version, are you talking about Ernest?
I'm
or are
talking
you
about Carlisle, who I
Kareem?
guess would be, the
Okay.
mom and the
Kareem.
doctor.
Yeah, Kareem. In my version, Kareem. Well, I think Kareem's superpower is incredible, like impossible restraint. Like, she was able to, like that's the whole point, right? Like, she's a vampire, but she literally can like wade in blood and not have to worry about needing to thirst. Like, she is thirsty, but she doesn't, has no effect on her whatsoever.
Well, but see,
so,
we hear about the origin story for Carlisle in like one of the next chapters, and
yeah.
and that's not what it was. Like, I mean, yeah, he learned over time to be restrained. He basically just isolated himself from society in order to do so. But that wasn't because of some innate gift that came from his vampiric abilities. Like,
Maybe it's learning, like, you know, like
maybe it's like,
yeah,
maybe these
but I
are
mean,
learned things. I don't know.
But no, Ernest is dumb too. Like, Ernest in my version, who I don't know who that is in your version. Like, it's Kareen and Carlisle's like significant other.
Esme. Esme is the mom. Yeah.
Ernest in my version. And his is just like he had the ability to love.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, okay,
Like,
so that's the thing. It's such a cop out.
Like, just,
that's the
deep,
number
deep
one. It's a
love.
huge cop out. Number one, it's a huge cop out.
Like, I don't care what
Like-
like story you're in. If you're the character whose power is love, I can guarantee you, you're the like totally boring, no one cares like secondary character. Like, oh, he can love. He really, what a lover.
Sure can. Sure can love. Okay, but then okay, you've got that side. You got the cop out side of it, right? But then the other problem with this is it's also fan fiction fuel. It's self-insert fan fiction fuel. Because,
like, how so?
Oh, okay. So
you
not only want to put yourself in the vampire story where it's a wonderful romance, you also want a superpower, and you get to choose based on what you assume is your strongest character trait?
Dude, you know, you're right. That's the first thing I wondered when I heard about that. I was like, I wonder what my superpower would be.
No,
like,
that's exactly what it is. It's fan fiction bait. That's exactly what it is.
God.
It's like, it's so teenagers can think, oh, well, you know, I'm really intellectual, so I guess I'd be like super smart.
Yeah, I don't know what mine would be. I guess maybe I'd be just like fucking gigantic. That's like, you know what I mean? Like that's like my only, you know, that's my most dominating
you
trait.
become a vampire, and
like a vampire Hagrid.
You're just like Hagrid. Like what?
Like just so impossibly gigantic.
Oh my gosh. No, but that's the thing. Like it's a cop out, and it's also a really convenient fan fiction bait. Like, anyway, okay. So long story short, Bella and Edward spend the night together. Not that way. No, we're gonna have those conversations later.
In my version, they're cuddling.
No, they are, but they're not doing much more than that. That's actually a plot point that they don't. That comes up later. Not in this book, but in one of the later books. So that's important to. That's the only reason I'm mentioning that, is it's actually kind of plot relevant. So that's that chapter. I'm pretty sure we just went on for close to an hour.
Oh wow.
On that one chapter, but you know, next time is chapter 15, The Cullens, when Bella finally goes to meet Edward's family. So until then, book Blitz.